everyone. Welcome to Mission to Inspire. My name is Shola, and we're joined today by Matthieu Mehuys. Hi, Matthieu. How are you?
Hey, Shola, thank you very much for having me on your show. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you for coming on our show today. And today we'll be talking about transforming lives and landscapes with Matthieu Mehuys. It will be talking us through how he started, how he got into landscaping gardening, how he left his 9 to 5 job, what he's doing currently, his recent projects and stuff. But I'll leave it to him to actually introduce himself. Matthieu, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Shola. So every time when I'm at a dinner party, people ask me, what do you actually do? And I try to, like, the quick way I answer it is that I'm a landscape architect. So I design gardens, properties. And then if people have a little bit more time, I go on and I say that I'm doing it in such a way that it's in harmony with nature. So I'm designing gardens, properties, farms that are working with nature rather than against it. Because far too often in a lot of developments or how we are producing our food, it's trying to like fight against nature, and there's no need for that because the fact that we're fighting against nature is having a huge negative impact on our personal health, because of all the chemicals that's being used both in farming and as well as in conventional gardening. Um, so the projects that I'm doing, we take a look at it from a whole other perspective, and we look into how nature works. And by the way, this is actually the topic of my upcoming award-winning book, 12 Universal Laws of Nature, how to get the most potential out of your land. So in that book, I really dive deep into, okay, how does nature actually work? And when you know how nature works, how can you use that to your advantage, so that you can become more successful as a gardener, as a farmer, as a landowner, even as a developer. So all these things is mostly what I'm working on most of my time. Yeah.
Okay, right. Thank you so much for talking us through what you do and doing that short introduction of yourself. Thank you so much. So you grew up in a family farm in Belgium, right? And when I was reading your bio, it says that you were actually fascinated with plants since you were a child. And that actually led to your career.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you share your journey from growing up on a family farm then in Belgium?
Yeah, definitely. So it's great that you bring that up because that kind of explains where I am today. So ever since I was about 3 years old, I became very fascinated about how it is possible on Earth that if you have a tiny little seed and you put it in contact with the soil, that it grows into a plant, or in some cases, even in a huge tree, like monumental trees, they all come from a tiny little seed, right? So the moment I started to realize that, I was just like mind blown. Like, how is this even possible? And this actually later on in my life, I really tried to understand to a profound level of how nature works, and that's what I was referring to later. But I'll tell you a short little story from my childhood. Also, when I grew up on the farm, at the farm we didn't have vegetables. It was mostly cash crops like grains, also cattle. So at that time there wasn't much going on in these areas. But I had a really amazing school teacher who was teaching us as children. And by the way, I would recommend every school to have a small vegetable garden for the children to learn to garden, because it's such a valuable skill. And I was privileged to have that as well. So I got so inspired from this teacher that I came home and I told my parents, I want to start my own vegetable garden. I want to grow my own food. So when we have a dinner or lunch, we can eat from the food I grow. Uh, so it took some time before I was allowed to do it, as like a, they probably say, the parents say like, oh, it's just another idea, you're not going to do it. But I kept pushing to get to actually start gardening. Eventually they let me do it, my parents, and I started with the radishes. And I tell you, Shola, if you also want to start your gardening journey, also for the listeners here, start with radishes. Like if you have, just buy a little, like you can buy like little packets of seeds. You sow some radishes. In a couple of weeks, you'll already have radishes that you can eat. You can mix them in your salads. They're super healthy. So for me as well, for some reason, that was my earliest success as a gardener. So I went on and said like, okay, now I'm gonna go bigger. I'm super motivated. I'm gonna buy all the seeds that I can find. I go with my dad to like these shops where you can buy it. I come home, I prepare the soil, and I just start spreading seeds everywhere, like planting it everywhere in different patches, thinking like, okay, now I'm just gonna go, and in a couple of weeks I'll come back and I'll have like all fresh products. I have tomatoes, lettuce, everything like fresh. Um, but I think you can already start to feel what happened. I came back after a couple of weeks, maybe spending other time on the farm. Uh, at that time, I also had a chicken egg business. I had 20 chicken and I was selling eggs. Can you
How old were
imagine?
you then?
I was around 5 years old,
Wow.
6 years old.
And you had your own
Uh,
chicken, eggs, radish. Oh my God.
yeah, yeah, on the farm. So I started to um, plant all my garden. Everything was set up. I was then taking care of other things, and I thought like just have to come back a couple weeks later.
Mm.
But you probably already know what's happened next. Like I came back, and the whole garden, and probably anybody who has some garden experience will know. I came back, and the whole garden was overgrown by weeds, and it was just I
Oh,
was so devastated. Like as a 5 year old, like oh my god, how does this happen? Like
yes.
why did it happen? And it took me another 15 years to really realize why it happened and
Mm,
what we can do to stop that from happening.
mm,
In fact, the reason that it happened is that anywhere in nature, if you make the soil bare, so you remove all the vegetation,
mm,
uh, and by the way, this hardly ever happens in nature. That's also an indication that we have to be careful of doing that because in nature it would only happen when there's a landslide. Maybe if there's a wildfire, you also have like a naked bare soil. So it's not a good thing to have a bare soil because the soil is like our skin of our planet. So it's protecting uh, the soil. So if you open it, just like your skin, if you open your skin, then it's prone to have infections. All bad things can happen, and then the weeds come. Because weeds, as it turns out, and I only got, like I said, I only learned this somewhat 10 years ago, that the weeds are actually the mechanism for nature to restore itself. So each time you, as a gardener, go out in your garden and you remove the weeds, and you keep the soil bare again, it's as if you're telling to nature, okay, now you can restore it yourself again and you can bring new weeds. So
uh,
that's why most gardeners are breaking their back and are extremely frustrated because they're always fighting against weeds. So there's a couple of things that you can do to avoid that, um, but you have to have the right knowledge to do that.
right. Okay. Wow. Wow. I know weeds can be very frustrating in terms of when you're trying to plant something and the weeds are going to destroy what you're planting.
Yeah.
Then that's going to be very, very, very frustrating. What inspired you then to leave your 9 to 5 job and then back on this global quest to study innovative gardening?
Oh yeah. So later on in my life, after graduating in like um, economics and modern languages, I went on to study garden design in a bachelor's, and then I also did a master degree in Germany in Munich as a landscape architect. So that's more for bigger scale projects, also like developments, land restoration projects. So I
Right.
really learned a lot there as well. And then, I was living in Germany in Munich. I can highly recommend for people to visit Munich because it's one of the most green cities in the world. They have the biggest urban park in the world, way bigger than Central Park in New York.
Right.
So it was a really nice time to live there. And I thought, okay, after graduating, I made it. I'm gonna get a 9 to 5 job, and this is it, you know. But then I find myself in the 9 to 5 job. After a couple months, I start to become depressed because it's like I'm clocking in, doing some work for somebody else, a lot of bureaucracy, not much like actual getting things done because a lot of the projects are very slow processed. Uh, so I said to myself, no, I don't want to do this anymore. So after 2 years, like dragging myself through this job, and and by the way, I'm also very grateful that I did this job because it really helped me to gain a lot of skills. Uh, and then, yeah, the Germans are very known for doing it very structured and proper. And so I learned a lot to become more systematic. So it was definitely, I have no regrets of doing it. But after 2 years, I had enough and I said, okay, I'm going to quit my job. I'll pack my backpack and I'm going to start exploring the world to see what's happening in the realm of projects that are doing good for our planet. So I
Mm,
went to visit a lot of farms, regenerative farms, organic farms. I volunteered in projects. I did a permaculture design course. Like permaculture is one way of making gardens that are very ecological and sustainable.
mhm.
So I continued to learn a lot. I traveled to many beautiful natural places to see like what it's like. For
Okay,
example, I went to Ecuador, one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had, because
right.
the amount of biodiversity you cannot even imagine. Like there's dolphins in the water, there's
Wow.
thousands of like I saw 20 different monkeys. Uh, like it's so beautiful,
Mm,
and in that moment, I also started to realize that I have to protect this. We have to help to protect this
right.
pristine natural landscapes.
Mhm.
And the way we can do that is to change our food systems because we're putting a lot of pressure on the land. So I went on to then actually I still worked as a freelancer in Saudi Arabia in the Middle East, trying to like make green oases in the desert. So that was a really cool experience as well. And
Mm,
then COVID hit, and eventually I started my own business, like pretty much in COVID.
yeah.
Uh, and I said, okay, let's do projects with our company that is both about creating very beautiful designs. So it's very like well thought, and if you look at it, it's just like it's nice designed, nice materials, and at the same time make it very high in ecological value, high biodiversity, not use chemicals so that the people that live in it and use it
Yeah.
actually also become healthier, because most gardens, or not most gardens, there's just quite a lot of gardens that you don't actually want to spend time in because they're putting so much chemicals in it that uh, it's not healthy to spend time there. So we took that challenge, and now we're succeeding at making gardens that are extremely biodiverse and at the same time also very easy to maintain,
Right.
because we found ways that you can, like I said, when you work with nature,
Mm,
there's way less weeds. There's you don't have to water your garden so often. You're creating healthy plants. Things grow better. Things look better. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey so far.
yeah, that's great. That's great. I know that you're an award-winning landscape architect.
Yeah.
In your own opinion, how can transforming gardens into space impact our physical and well-being health? How can it actually impact it?
Oh yeah, it has a huge impact on our environment, and it actually all makes sense because if we just look at only like 300-400 years ago, we
Mhm.
were very still very connected to nature, and then now we became like alienated from nature. It's as if we got truly kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and now we are all living in, or a lot in, like urban environments. Our food is full of chemicals, so nothing is natural. But if you can create in your for your own family and for your own environment, you can create something that is really good for the planet, for yourself, for your family, it has a huge impact. Just to give you an idea, for example, that if you do a garden that is in harmony with nature, you're going to start to create a soil that is way more healthier.
Yeah.
And if you have a healthy soil, and then you put your hands into the soil, you will become healthier yourself because the soil is full of microorganisms. And as it turns out, they're starting to get more and more research that proves this, that most of the diseases from our modern time, like diabetes, cancer, all of these things are related to the health of our gut. So in our stomach should also be full of microorganisms, but because we are eating food that is full of chemicals or very processed, we're losing a lot of the microorganisms. And the microorganisms are essential for your digestive system
Hmm.
because even if you would eat healthy food
Yeah.
and you don't have the right microbiome in your stomach,
Hmm.
then you cannot you cannot absorb the nutrients. So whereas if you literally just by digging your hands in the soil, you work in your garden, your skin absorbs the microorganisms and you will feel instantly, you will feel better,
Mm.
healthier.
Mm.
So yeah, it has a huge impact. Also, you're doing something that is physically uh, like there's some labor in it, which is great. It's an exercise.
Yeah.
You're spending time outside, not in a closed environment.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are all things that have a huge impact.
On our mental and physical health. Wow. Thank you for that. Any practical tips for individuals out there who want to start their own ecological garden, but don't know how to?
Mm, yeah, Um, I want to say like there's lots of great information out there, and there definitely is, but it's just if you want to start from scratch, it's very overwhelming to actually do that
Okay.
because like you go on YouTube and you press garden
Mm.
or vegetable garden,
Mhm.
you'll find so much different information that it can be very overwhelming. Sometimes
Yeah.
there's even information that is not even correct. So
Hmm.
it's very hard to find that.
Yeah.
Um, so I actually created a master class where
Okay.
you can learn everything you have to learn
Hmm.
in 9 weeks.
Yeah.
And if people want to find out more about it, they can go to my website and find some free content there and
Hmm.
see how that lands. That will give them already like a couple of tools that they can start to use, some
Right.
plants that are easy to grow, some beautiful flowers.
Yeah.
Um, and then if you really want to get into it, I'd highly recommend you to get some coaching around gardening because you can definitely do it on your own by reading books and spending time there. But in the end of the day, you need somebody to support you, right? If you start to garden and then all of a sudden there's a problem, you're
Mm.
not going to ask your book like, okay, what should I do now?
I
It's not
think
going to be
it's
the
true.
book is not going to tell you.
That's very.
Uh, so yeah, I'd highly recommend to find people to help you in the journey because you get way faster results. Like some of my clients, they started to join my program, they got immediate results. Now their garden looks amazing and they show it to their neighbors and their friends and they now even start to become they start to have their own clients. So people comment and they show like what they've done
Mhm.
and they're like, oh, it's so amazing, can you also do it for me?
Right.
So
Yeah.
like even imagine for you as a person you want to start a new hobby
Mm.
and who knows, it could turn into a new life path where you also support other people in doing it. Because I strongly believe like the more people we can get to garden, we're gonna get into a better, healthier, and more beautiful world.
Right. Wow. Wow. So how can people contact you then if they want to contact you?
Oh yeah, so for you, Shola, I'd love to open my Calendly. So we can put that in the show notes. So if people feel like they want to take immediate action, I'll open up some places in my calendar.
Okay.
So people can book a 30-minute exploration call. So we'll look at their project, give them some free advice of like what they can do or what is necessary for them.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
that's that's what they can do to get some fast action and fast results.
Okay. That would be great. That would be great. So that will be in the description and show notes. everyone if you want to contact Matthieu. So, how do you see the role of landscape architect evolving in future, especially in the context of compacting the climate and promoting sustainability?
Yeah, I think there's a huge role that landscape architects can play because um, architects and urban planners are doing a great job, but they're missing a part of the puzzle. It's about the surrounding, the green, the environment, and it's so crucial because of all the um, reasons that I stated before for our human health, just to feel better, to um, also start to capture more carbon dioxide from the environment. If we can make great more and healthier, especially healthier green environments,
Mm.
then we can put so much carbon into the soil. In fact, I'm also working with farmers. I'm teaching farmers how they can transform their farm because on our own personal, on our family farm over the last 7 years, we made a lot of changes.
Mm.
So with all of that knowledge that I gathered, I'm now coaching farmers as well. And there's some research about the fact that if only half of the farmers would change to a system which is called regenerative farming, so that's again more in harmony with nature. You apply certain principles, like as one of them is like as I explained, to keep the soil covered as much as possible
Yeah.
by using you growing different plants.
Mhm.
Then we can be in um, amounts of carbon dioxide that were before the industrial revolution
Right.
in only 7 years. So pretty much we could change, we could reverse climate change within 7 years,
Mm.
which is going to become inevitable even because if it's already happening now, like the climate is becoming so extreme that the conventional way of farming is
Mhm.
starting to crumble. The system is not working because it's even longer dry periods, more rainfall at once. So it's going to become even inevitable to change to this way of farming. And
Wow.
also with gardening, I see it far too often. Like I had a client the other day that asked us to come to their garden, big property, and they were gardening and maintaining the property in a certain way. But for example, what they were doing is what each year in their garden they would remove all the leaves. So the leaves from the trees fall down, and in autumn they would get them out and get them to like a composting center just out of their property.
Right.
And doing that for 30, 40 years,
Wow.
the trees started to die because as in the ecosystem of trees, the leaves are super important because they actually feed the leaves feed the trees. So it's like a closed circle. So if
Okay.
you remove the leaves each and every year, your
Mhm.
trees are gonna die. And this system it worked for quite a while. But now if you have like a super dry summer or a super rainy spring like this year, then the trees are gonna suffer and so we helped them to make that transition to put up a new design that would enable the leaves to stay in the garden, and now it's becoming way more healthier and even the maintenance is drastically reducing because they would spend several thousands of euros
Right.
pounds in your case to remove the leaves so they could save money as well.
Mm, wow. I never knew that. I never knew that it's the leaves that actually feed the tree. And when you really remove the trees, the tree will die. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. Wow, that's good to know. Wow. Thank you so much for joining us today. Do you have any advice that you want to give people out there still?
Yeah, I think if people just want to become happier, healthier, uh, you don't necessarily have to go to the gym or buy certain supplements or all these things, which
Mhm.
I'm not saying that are bad. You should definitely keep doing it if you're doing it. But you can also just walk into your backyard and start doing something there and truly enjoy that because the smile it puts on people's face the moment they've grown their first product, their first like radish, and that was for me as a child as well. It's priceless. Like you cannot compare that with anything. So
Wow.
it's something very beautiful to do.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So everyone, there is that 30 minutes training, free training that you can book on his website. The address of the website will be in the show notes. And as I said, there will be a calendar link that you can click on as well to book this. So thank you so much for joining us today, Matthieu. You said something about your book. Where can we buy it, and what's the title?
Oh yeah, so the book is called 12 Universal Laws of Nature, How to Get the Most Potential Out of Your Land. And the website is 12lawsofnature.com. And there you can order the book. There's some other content that you can have a look at there as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And don't forget, keep subscribing and liking and commenting on our show. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Bye. Subscribe if you haven't done so. Like, follow, comment. Until next time. Goodbye.